The world did not expect what happened that evening. Cameras were flashing, reporters were shouting, and thousands of fans were watching the red carpet of a charity event in Los Angeles. But in the middle of all the noise, Keanu Reeves and Sandra Bullock shared a moment so gentle and so quiet that it felt like the whole world paused to breathe. It happened in just a few seconds. Keanu leaned in, placed his hand softly on the side of her face, and kissed her forehead with warmth and care. There was no drama, no show, no grand statement. Just respect, just love that did not need to be explained. And in that small moment, the internet went silent. But behind that one moment was a long and emotional history. Not everyone knew what they had been through. Years of friendship, loss, distance, timing that was never right, and hearts that were always quietly connected. Because this story did not start on that red carpet. It began many years earlier, on a film set, where two young actors were just beginning to understand what it meant to love, to hope, and to survive pain. Keanu Reeves had always carried something heavy in his eyes. He was known for his kindness, his silence, and the way he listened more than he spoke. But behind those calm eyes lived memories of loss that most people could not imagine. He had lost people he loved deeply, one after another, in painful ways that left scars no one could see. He did not talk about it. He did not complain. He simply lived with it, quietly, like someone walking through life with soft steps so as not to disturb the ghosts that lived in his heart. Sandra Bullock, on the other hand, was like sunlight, warm, bright, and always able to make others smile. But she had her own hidden emptiness. She had known heartbreak. She had known loneliness even when surrounded by people. She laughed loudly, she joked often, and she kept the world entertained. But sometimes when she was alone, she also cried in silence. When Keanu and Sandra first worked together, something unspoken began between them. They understood each other without talking. They comforted each other without needing to touch. They were like two souls who recognized each other in a world that moved too fast and too loud. They developed a connection that was gentle, respectful, and full of warmth. But they never crossed the line. They never rushed. They never tried to force love into something it was not ready to be. Instead, they simply stayed in each other's lives like a soft, constant light. And that is why the world went silent when Keanu kissed her forehead. Because it was not just a kiss. It was years of quiet love, shared pain, and deep respect, expressed in a single moment that spoke louder than words. After that quiet forehead kiss, many people assumed Keanu and Sandra finally confessed their love. Headlines exploded, social media went wild, and fans created theories that they had been secretly together for years. But the truth was different and more complicated, filled with timing, fear, and fragile hearts healing slowly. Years earlier, when they filmed their first movie together, they were young and unsure of themselves. The attraction was strong, but neither wanted to risk destroying the friendship that had already become important to both of them. So they held back. They chose silence over confession. And sometimes, silence is louder than love. One evening, after a long day of filming, they sat together on the back steps of the studio. The sun was setting, and the sky was painted in soft gold. There were no cameras, no fans, no noise, just two people and the quiet between them. Sandra looked at him and said softly, almost like she was afraid to break something precious, "You look like you carry the world inside your chest." Keanu did not answer right away. He just watched the horizon, like he was searching for something that could not be seen. Then he spoke, voice gentle, "Sometimes it feels like I do, but when I am around you, it becomes lighter." She did not say anything. She simply leaned her shoulder against his, and they stayed like that. Not lovers, not strangers, something different, something harder to define. Years passed. They both dated other people. They both got hurt. They both healed and broke again. Life kept moving forward, sometimes gently, sometimes like a storm. Yet through every season of their lives, they stayed connected. Birthdays, quiet messages, unexpected phone calls that lasted hours, checking on each other when the world became too heavy. One of the hardest moments came when Keanu faced one of the darkest losses in his life. Many people know this part of his story. He lost someone he loved deeply, and the grief was like a shadow that covered everything. During that time, Sandra did not try to fix him. She did not try to make the pain disappear. She simply stayed. She sat with him in his silence. She listened when he wanted to speak. She let him cry without asking him to be strong. She understood something most people forget. Sometimes, love is not about saving someone. Sometimes, it is about staying beside them while they save themselves. And Keanu, despite his quiet nature, did the same for her. When Sandra faced heartbreak, betrayal, and loneliness she did not show to the world, he was there. He made her laugh when she forgot how. He reminded her that her heart was still worthy of being held. Their bond became something deeper than friendship, but softer than romance, something only they understood. And that is why the world felt that kiss, because it was not a performance. It was history. It was truth. There came a moment in their lives when everyone around them believed they should be together. Friends would smile knowingly. Interviewers would tease them. Even strangers could feel the warmth in their eyes when they looked at each other. But the more the world pushed them toward love, the more carefully they stepped around it. Not because they did not love, but because they loved it deeply. Sandra once said in a quiet interview, almost whispering, maybe we were afraid. Afraid that if we tried to love each other as lovers, we would lose what we already had. And what we had was rare, gentle, safe. Keanu, in another interview years later, smiled in that small, shy way of his and said, I think some people come into your life and never leave. Even when they are not physically with you. They did try once, though. This part was never shared publicly. It happened after a night when both of them had cried for different reasons, but somehow found comfort in each other's voices over the phone. Past midnight, Sandra had whispered, Can I come over? And Keanu had answered, yes, without a second of hesitation. When she arrived, she looked tired, vulnerable, and real. No makeup, no smile for the world. He opened the door, saw her, and something inside his chest tightened. They didn't speak at first. They just stood there, eyes locked, hearts loud. Then she stepped forward and wrapped her arms around him. He held her close, like she was something fragile and precious that he never wanted to let go. For the first time, they allowed themselves to feel everything they had spent years protecting. They sat on the couch, no lights on, only the soft glow of a small lamp nearby. Sandra looked at him, her voice shaking just a little. Keanu, what are we? He took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment, and replied, we are something real, something rare. But I don't want to lose you. She felt it too. The fear, the love, the uncertainty. If they took that step forward, they could gain everything, or lose everything. He gently placed his forehead against hers. They sat like that for a long time, breathing the same air, holding the same silence, hearts speaking words their mouths could not. No kiss that night, no promise, no confession. Only understanding. They loved each other, yes, but sometimes love waits. Sometimes love chooses patience over passion. Sometimes love decides that the bond is more important than the label. The world outside would never understand this kind of love. A love without urgency, a love without ownership, a love without conditions. But they understood it, and that was enough. Years would still pass before that red carpet moment, before that soft kiss on the forehead that made the world fall silent. But their story was already written long before then. Time moved forward, as it always does. Careers rose, personal lives changed, and the world kept placing Keanu and Sandra onto separate paths that always somehow curved back toward each other. Sometimes months passed without them speaking, but when they did, it felt like no time had gone at all. They were the kind of connection people talk about in movies but rarely find in real life. But life is never simple. There came a time when Sandra believed she had finally found lasting love with someone else. She was hopeful. She wanted to build a family, to feel safe, to be seen. She shared her joy with Keanu, and he smiled for her. He listened. He encouraged. He didn't hold her back, even though inside a quiet ache bloomed. He had always believed love meant wanting someone to be happy, even if their happiness was not with you. But when that relationship slowly began to break, Sandra didn't tell the world. She just got quieter. Her laugh lost some of its light. She worked more. She appeared strong, but inside she felt herself unraveling. And one night, When the silence in her house felt too heavy to bear, she called Keanu. He answered on the second ring, as if he had been waiting for her. She didn't speak at first. He didn't rush her. He simply said softly, "I'm here." And those two words broke her in the gentlest way. She cried in the quiet of her room, and he listened from miles away, his voice grounding her, steadying her, reminding her she was not alone. Weeks later, they saw each other in person at a private dinner with close friends. Sandra looked tired, but still tried to smile. Keanu noticed immediately. He always noticed. When everyone else was laughing, he leaned toward her and whispered, "You don't have to pretend with me." For the first time in a long while, Sandra let herself breathe. They walked outside afterward, away from the noise, under the soft light of the street lamps. The night was calm, and the sound of distant traffic felt far away. She looked up at him, eyes soft but filled with sadness. "Why is love so hard?" she asked. Keanu looked at her with that same quiet wisdom he always carried and said, "Because real love is not something we control. It grows on its own. It takes time. It asks us to be patient with ourselves." She nodded, tears forming but not falling. Then he reached out, gently brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. It was a small gesture, but it carried years of understanding. No kiss, no confession, no big moment. Just two souls recognizing each other again. The world saw them as actors, celebrities, icons. But in that moment, they were simply two human beings trying to heal. As the years went by, both of them learned more about loss, patience, and the quiet work of healing. Keanu continued living in the gentle, private way he always did. Sandra poured love into her work and into the people she cared for. They didn't speak every day, sometimes not even every month, but when life became heavy, they always found their way back to each other. One afternoon, during a charity project in New York, they met again. No cameras, no interviews, just two friends sitting at a long wooden table folding letters for donations. It should have been ordinary, but nothing between them ever was. Sandra noticed his hands first. They trembled slightly. Tired hands, hands that had carried too many memories. She looked at him carefully and asked, almost in a whisper, "Are you okay?" Keanu took a slow breath before answering. "Some days are harder," he said softly. "But I'm still here." Those words held weight. They spoke of battles no one saw, of grief that didn't disappear, of resilience that required strength beyond understanding. Sandra reached out and placed her hand over his, not to fix him, not to comfort him in a dramatic way, but to remind him that someone understood. He turned his hand, palm to palm, holding hers gently but securely. Their fingers did not interlock. Their bodies did not lean close. It was just contact, steady, quiet, real. After the charity work ended, they walked together through a small park nearby. People passed them without knowing who they were, because both of them had learned how to blend into the world like ordinary souls. They stopped near a small fountain. The water shimmered under the afternoon sun. Sandra watched the ripples. Keanu watched her. She spoke first, voice soft. "Do you ever think there was a version of us, in another timeline, where we tried?" Keanu did not smile. He did not laugh. He did not turn away. Instead, he looked at her with that deep, thoughtful gaze, the kind that made even silence feel meaningful. "Yes," he said. "I think in another life, we met at the wrong time. Maybe in this life, we met at the right one. But we just didn't know how to hold it." Her eyes warmed with emotion. "Do you regret it?" she asked. Keanu shook his head slowly. "No. Because what we have is real, and not everything real needs to be named." They stood there for a moment, just breathing, just being. The world told stories of love defined by dramatic kisses, wedding rings, confessions shouted in the rain, but theirs was different. Their love lived in the quiet. In the small gestures. In being present without needing to possess. In staying even when distance appeared. And even though they were not lovers in the way the world expected, they were something even stronger. Souls that never left each other. The night of the charity red carpet arrived many years later. Neither Keanu nor Sandra planned anything special. They had walked carpets before. They had stood under lights before. They had smiled for the world more times than they could count. But something was different that evening. Maybe it was the years they had lived. Maybe it was the things they had survived. Maybe it was simply time that the cameras flashed the moment they stepped out. Reporters shouted their names. Fans held signs. There was excitement in the air. Sandra wore a soft smile, one that carried both grace and quiet strength. Keanu walked beside her, calm and present, like he always had been. They stood together for a photo. Close but not too close. Familiar but not dramatic. And then, in the middle of the noise, the shouting, the flashes, something gentle happened. Keanu turned to her, slowly, like he wanted every moment to be seen. But not by the cameras, only by her. He lifted his hand and touched the side of her face, a gesture soft enough to feel like breath. Sandra froze for a moment, not from surprise, but from understanding. The kind of understanding that comes from years of shared history. His eyes were warm. Hers softened. Then he leaned forward and kissed her forehead. Not a kiss filled with hunger. Not a kiss meant for attention. Not a kiss for the world. It was a kiss that said, "Thank you for staying. Thank you for understanding me when I could not speak. Thank you for loving me." Without needing to call it love, the world saw the kiss and fell silent. Millions watched the clip. People commented that it felt different, deeper, real. Some called it love. Some called it friendship. But no one could deny the emotion in it. After the event, they sat together in a quiet corner backstage. Just the two of them, no noise, no cameras. Sandra looked at him, her voice soft. "You didn't have to do that." Keanu shook his head lightly. "I know. But I wanted to." She breathed slowly, letting the moment settle between them. "So what are we now?" she asked. He smiled, not big, just enough to show warmth. "We are two souls who met and did not let go. No label, no promise, no ending. Just truth." Their love was never about being together in the way stories usually end. It was about presence, about showing up when it was hardest, about holding space when life was heavy, about knowing each other in ways words could not explain. The world called it confusing, but they called it enough. And sometimes, enough is the most beautiful kind of love there is.